RogueCon 23. That's right. It is here. It's not back. It's here. It's the first one. Join the ultimate celebration of digital content with its creators, passionate fans, and industry experts. It is all happening in downtown Waco across multiple venues, January 20th through the 22nd of 2023. Now, if you want to go, you got to get tickets, and tickets are on sale at RogueCon23.com. That's RogueCon, RogueCon 23.com. Be there. I'm going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. Let's go.
BooBaes.
Hi.
Hello and happy birthday!
Happy birthday
To us. Bing, 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 bing.
It is our 1 year anniversary.
It is. Not when this
Yes.
comes out, but today when we're recording September 28th.
Yeah, so you just get to kind of fill that out with us.
Yeah.
As we are celebrating.
I knew it was coming up, and then today in my time hop and stuff,
Oh,
I
yeah.
started getting a bunch of screenshots from our Instagram and stuff.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, is it today? And so then I went and checked.
Yeah.
The things we should know. It's
Time
fine.
evades. Time evades the best of us.
And you
It's-
know what? We'll probably still not post about it on our Instagram tonight.
I probably knew. I mean,
'Cause
I
I'm
knew,
tired.
right? Today. I mean, we could still maybe scratch something up. But yeah, it is that time of the year, isn't it?
Mhm.
This about
I had a feeling.
2021
I was like,
time.
it's somewhere around here. We dropped 3
Mhm.
episodes at once.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at it, it says that The Devil Made Me Do It is our first episode, but we definitely
But-
recorded The Exorcist first.
First, yes.
So in our mind, Devil
It's
Made
The
Me Do It's second one.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
speaking of
just
The Devil Made Me
logistics,
Do
but
It,
We're going to be talking about The Conjuring. The 2013 Conjuring, the first movie that brought us into the Conjuring universe.
yes, which has spawned so many films.
Yes.
A lot of them good,
Mm-hmm.
some of them not.
I enjoy them. I mean, for the most part, yeah, I agree, though. Some of them not.
Yeah, the
But
La
this
Llorona
one-
was bad.
It wasn't good.
Yeah,
I honestly, I didn't
I
also
liked
vibe with it.
most of
There
the
were some like
Annabelles.
key point. There were some moments in that movie though that were good. It's just like
Mhm.
overall, it's kind of just
It was a
it
letdown.
was like a subpar, hit.
Yeah.
But the Annabelle movie's pretty good. I remember Annabelle Creation. That one really well. Even the first Annabelle.
That's the one where
there's a
you're
mom-
like on the farm with them, right?
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
get
yeah.
that
There's
scene
the little
of the
girls in the
demon, like,
orphanage,
puking in the-
orphan girls.
in the barn.
Yeah.
Going
Um.
that black sludge into
So
her.
there was a part
I
in
love that.
the first Annabelle that really kind of like spooked me when it was the we're not talking about that, but whenever the demons like going across the hall and the hallways in the hotel that they're staying in and like real fast and whatever and
It
down
was
the
the part
stairwell.
going up the stairs, for
Yeah.
me.
Because
Because I had a anecdote with that one, but I'm saving that for when we
Gotcha.
actually cover that film.
but also the second one, just Creation, really gave me a good spook. I also watched that one alone.
Yeah, I went to
Which
the movie
most movies I
theaters and
watch alone.
watched the first one by myself, and it was spring. Well, okay, I'll save it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
save it.
Save it for the episode because we will eventually cover those, especially since we will now be covering The Conjuring, and our next episode we're gonna be calling it
Covering.
covering The Conjuring 2.
2.
Yes, which is the follow up to this movie.
Yes.
And so
Maybe they
in
weren't
the
as
initial,
good. Did you know that this
What?
movie was 20 years in the making?
No, I didn't
Basically,
pick that one
the-
up on my studying.
Basically the whoever is the oh goodness, why did I not prepare this when I decided?
The Who Da Ha.
I can't. It's a
Producers?
really
Is
long
it-
name.
Okay.
It's something with a hyphen. Oh, it's also one of the highest grossing.
Tony De
like-
Rosa Grande.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So DeRosa Grund.
Yes.
He was shown or listened to one of the audio recordings
Mhm.
from Carolyn, the original like actual person from the
The
original
mama.
family. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by Ed Warren, I believe. And after that, he was like, I want to make this film. But then he tried for like 15 years and it didn't get picked up. And he just continued trying and he never gave up hope. And eventually it did.
Well, because by that point, too, they had already had stories or movies made following the Amityville horror story, which wasn't necessarily linked to them, but also was a case that they had worked on. You know what I mean?
Which, and they mention it in this one. At the end, there's a few little
nods, because that's how we open up The Conjuring 2.
Yes.
Yeah. Because they're coming off of that. But yeah, it's I'm so excited. We've been very excited to cover these. This is actually these 2 episodes are going to be our picks because we really do enjoy the franchise. It's directed by James Wan and was released in a lot of movies and like has a good range of movies as well, not necessarily just in like the horror scope. And then it was released in 2013. And so
I remember going to see it like my I guess it would have been like my freshman year of college,
right out of high school. Freshman year.
Going into my sophomore year. I remember seeing the trailer for this, and it was one of the first ones in a long time that made me be like, oh fuck, because the clap game, and they showed just like one of the parts where it's like the hands come out and just clap, and that
from
was
the
like
shadows.
And then it goes like black, and I was like,
It's very scary. Even
so
watching it now.
I know. Even
it was a little eerie. Even I watched it yesterday and a little bit today as well, to kind of like a little go over. And even today, like as I was doing things, I was honestly like, just because my mind had been like tapped into the vibes, I was like, fuck.
Yeah, the one.
I was a little creeped out today, a little paranoid.
The one with Rory, whenever the mom, Carolyn, is on the stairs after she's been like, pushed down the basement stairs and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And she gets back up. That one, like, still gives me, like,
he's
shivers.
Like, do you want to play a game?
Yeah. He's like, do you want to play hide and clap?
Yeah.
And then right after his
and
little
then
hands
the match
come out,
goes out, whoosh, it goes dark, and all you hear is just her just, like, screaming, and then, like, the door just, like, in the banging.
Not opening.
Yes.
Because also where his hands came from, she was backed up against a door, so there was no humanly possible way for his hands to have come from there. And it's still, like, ugh. I'm like, no.
That's scary. It's truly terrifying.
It is.
But we will get to that. Right now, let's get to the beginning.
Yes.
Which we also get an introduction to something that we've been already just talked about, is Annabelle. Literally.
I almost brought my dolls Annabelle in the rain, but I didn't want to leave them sitting in a hot car all day while I was at work. And
time did not allow you to go there and pick them up after work and come here. Yes.
Yeah. They would have been real grumpy, and Annabelle.
We don't want grumpy spirits on our recording.
No,
we don't.
And Annabelle's probably one of my more, I feel like, actively haunted dolls. And so I try to avoid angering her. I don't move her ever without like speaking to her and like asking her if it's okay first.
No, I fully
I feel like we have a nice mutual respect now.
Everything that you're saying right now, because they give a little haunt vibes. They do.
Yeah, Annabelle gave me bad vibes for like 2 weeks. I left her in the office at work because someone who worked with me gifted her to me, and I was like, this is terrifying. And then finally I brought her down, and as I came down the elevator, because I like left after close, and I came down the elevator and I walked around the corner, and there's a bar underneath where I work, and it's the song that like I always feel like somebody's watching me.
Oh no,
was playing as I turned the corner, and I was like trying to take a little video of us like walking down the stairs, like, I'm bringing this really scary doll home, and then
that's super funny.
I hear the song,
ironic,
and my face
comedy
like,
gold
drops, and I was like, nope. I freaked out.
Yeah, no. When I went to go feed the kitties, they were kind of creepy.
Yeah. They're not for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned that one arm doll was like on the ground, right? But then there was also a clown that was on the floor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I picked him up and put him back up. I don't think I put him in the right spot.
Oh,
but
I never
so
noticed.
I don't know if
you
noticed. There was
disturbed.
So there was a clown that was on the floor as well, but I put him back up there.
Do you remember what?
It was yellow pants I'm getting, and like a red hair. That's all I'm getting. I don't know.
Like one of the Raggedy Ants?
I don't
From
know.
the kitchen?
No, it was like it was by like when you walk into your living room, when you turn left, there's like a little bookshelf there, and there's all these and there's a lot of clown ones, and one of them was on the floor.
They were crawling on the bookshelf even then?
I
Those
don't know.
fuckers.
Get onto the kitties. My bad. Oops, I'm a snitch.
I bought a spray bottle and I felt too bad I couldn't spray them.
But I also believe it was
I was
Annabelle.
like, I can't.
Annabelle was over there bitch slapping the little clown dolls.
Probably that's why her arm,
Was
because
on
that
the floor.
arm that was on the ground
Yep.
is, Annabelle doesn't have arms.
Mm.
But she has one of them. It's just like,
One of the other ones is detached, and you put it across the other way of the room.
it's a decoration.
Yeah.
And it ended up like
On
in
the
the
table.
middle of the
Well-
middle of the living room.
She was trying to get that arm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's
Failed
trying to become
attempt.
whole again.
Mm-hmm. So
Anyways,
we're
this
talking
Annabelle.
about, like literally 10 minutes in. We're talking about Annabelle because Debbie, who is a nurse, and she has a friend, and they are all with this another roommate talking to Ed and Lorraine about the doll, who looks really fucking creepy, which actually
looks nothing at all.
isn't like the real Annabelle, which is just like a Raggedy Ann
Yeah,
doll.
she's a Raggedy Ann.
They're
Which I
talking
have some of
about
those.
they're talking about how she has been basically kind of like harassing, leaving little notes.
Mhm.
What
They're
do you call
describing
it?
all the horrors that have happened.
Yeah.
She's moving throughout
Vandalizing
the
the
house.
house.
Yeah, graffitiing, like
Yeah,
coloring
breaking
with
everything.
red crayons all over everything and
Mm-hmm.
making little notes that say "Miss Me."
Yeah,
And it's like, nah.
because they had essentially talked to like a clairvoyant or someone and said,
and I'm like, this
yes.
clairvoyant need to be fired.
Yeah, and told them that, oh, this little girl named Annabelle died there, and it's just her, and she wants to be your friends, and so they allowed her to come into this doll. But what it really was a demonic entity,
Mhm.
as Ed and Lorraine are telling them, because
gave it
it was a
permission
conduit. Yes,
to invest
exactly.
your lives.
And so now it's now leeching onto
Infest.
them because demons do not possess things; they possess people.
And it was
So,
after you.
Exactly. And I remember their faces in the part of the movie, and they were very like, oh shit.
Well,
Like,
because at that point too, as we find out later, and if you know anything about the Annabelle story, the male roommate who was there
Mhm.
had been like physically assaulted, I
Mhm.
believe too. He was having a bunch of scratch marks on him and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And
spooky shit.
I feel like he was maybe even more targeted than them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But yeah, and then as we see, you can never throw a dolly out that's haunted and expect to just move on with your
Throw
life.
it in the trash, literally.
That bitch came right back. And the way that she knocked, so heavy. Uh-uh.
And it came in threes,
Yeah.
which is
Dun, dun,
we
dun.
talk on that later.
Yep.
But it's it's really scary. And when they come out and they're both looking in the hallway, and then they go and they look up, and it's like, oh shit, and then they get the other knocks, like, well,
On the
one,
door right next to the other girl. That scared
which is the
shit out of
closet.
me.
Me too. And I have already seen this movie. And yeah, so when they open up the front door, that one girl, because I forget her name, but she picks up the note that says "Miss Me Again," and then we get those thuds at the other door, and it's Annabelle in the fucking closet, even
Yeah.
though after they had already thrown her out.
Hard pass.
Yeah, and so I was just like, oh shit, this bitch is back, and she is not playing games.
That's why
anymore.
I don't try every time that I just be polite to my
Mhm.
dolls, because some people have been like, oh, you should sage. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking piss them off by like saging and then them being like,
What if they've been dormant, and when you start doing that is when they like, oh, what? They awake.
yeah. And then they're just mad. Like, nope. So instead, I just talk very politely to Annabelle. I wave to her occasionally. And
Like how you talk to like children, like like infants, because you're supposed to talk to them like adults, not like, but like, I mean,
I say,
still,
I'm going to move you right
Mhm.
now. Is that okay?
I'm going to slap you across the face. No, I'm just kidding.
I would never.
JK.
She does, I think, get kind of grumpy when I leave, though. The cats definitely threw her arm across. Like, I 1000% believe they did that.
Totally.
But then there was another time when I left for California for a while, and my record cabinet there, I had just gotten back and had been there maybe 10 minutes. And I was laying like on the couch on my stomach. Kitty was with me. She was on the couch too. And all of a sudden, one of the speaker covers on my record cabinet just
you told me
flies
that.
off. And then it like smacks into the ground so hard.
Sounds like something was either like super like annoyed that you took so long to get back, or was annoyed that you were back.
Oh, yeah, maybe. They're like, now we can't have fun.
Damn it. Yeah, literally.
I did tell them, I was like, I'm sorry for leaving.
It gives very Toy Story, like all the dolls just like,
Yeah.
as soon as
they
you walk
plop
in, they're
down.
like, fucking shit.
Oh God, my house would be like literally a party.
Can you imagine like in the like little side story and like there's like 3 dolls behind that little thing that you didn't see and they're like holding them back and she's like, fuck this bitch, fuck her. And
Can
she
you
just
go
like
to sleep, please, so we can get to our spot?
and the outcome was literally just that thing popping off and then they're like, oh shit, and they like chloroform him and then they like have to take him back later.
Oh, I love that. I'd watch that movie.
It's a little like I can see like claymation.
Yeah, ooh, cute.
And so yeah, all this shit is going on while they're talking to Ed and Lorraine, and that's whenever we get that this is actually them talking to an auditorium full of students.
And we get our first sighting of Cutie Patootie Drew.
Yeah. Oh, my favorite.
I
yeah,
love
he's played
him
by
so
Shannon
much.
Cook. I've seen him in a few other things before this, but I've always had like a crush on him. He's
Me
super
too.
cute. Yeah. So and such a good character.
I
And
ship him so hard with Brad.
oh, with Brad. Wait, who was Brad? Wait,
Cop.
Which one was? Oh, the cop. Oh yeah, because there was that like
They give
sexual
heavy
tension.
sexual tension. I know I've said this before, but they're my favorite couple. Like they're a power couple.
And so that they
I
were
would
very
watch
cute. They would be very cute. Yeah.
Their show.
Aw, like a sitcom, like WandaVision, but
I love the sass between the two of them. Like at the end,
Yeah.
whenever he has his whole fucking face bit off, and he's like, "Did a draft do that?" And I was like, "Just bone each other already."
yeah. It's a good callback to like the conversation they had earlier. And also
It was a
just like
draft.
throughout the whole time they have banter. Even when they first meet each other, he's like, you can't shoot ghosts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
love
And
it.
so
He
and
looks
that's
so
whenever
obsessed.
okay, for the next 30 minutes, Caitlin, go ahead. Let's just talk about go for it. Talk
No,
about
there's
Drake.
so many times in here where I'm just like, "Oh,
Drew's
Drew,"
cute.
or like, "Oh, I loved her so
And please
much."
don't die. Yeah. And so
Which is what was so shocking about the third one is
Oh,
he
yeah.
was fucking not good in it. I was like, "Yo, you were such a great actor, like so effortlessly." And then in the third one, it was like, did they
It
give you like
faltered.
1 minute to prepare?
Who
Like,
knows? Who knows?
I don't know.
And so we go into it, and they're also kind of talking like all these students raise like their hands for questions, and everybody is asking like, well, one student essentially is just like, well, what do you call yourselves? And that's when they're like, we're this, we're that, and then they're like, we're kooks,
Yeah,
because
demonologist.
that's what people
Kids.
call them because they don't necessarily don't get believed that everything they say is like really true.
Yeah,
and
they were
as a matter
under
of fact.
a lot of scrutiny. But
Yeah, that's a
then
good word.
then Lorraine comes in with a
We
nice
are.
solid line. We prefer to be known simply as Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like so good.
And then we get a little title card.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It
The
gives me The
Conjuring.
Exorcist.
Yeah, mixed with a little of Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah. And it says, basically, it also tells us a little bit like Lorraine is clairvoyant. Ed is the only religious, I guess, or something, demonologist recognized by the Catholic Church. And then the font when it comes in, so good. And then we pan to 1971, Harrisville, Rhode Island.
Yes.
And we are arriving with
Pulling
the
up.
family
Mm-hmm.
to the house, which actually looks nothing like
The actual house.
the parents. Yeah, looks
Oh,
nothing
the
like the
people.
actual house.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, the casting was fine.
Okay.
But yeah, the house is very different.
Mm. Yeah, no.
Did you
They're-
see pictures of it?
No, no. No, I didn't see it. No.
I'll show you.
So show me, please. But I will be continuing to talk as they are moving into this new house. Oh, okay.
This
I
picture
see it.
has
Yeah.
maybe
It gives-
supposedly
well,
has
I'm-
Bathsheba in it.
Well, it's the very plantation style type of house, like very old school type of house here in America.
Oh, here we go. Here's what it looked like in the 70s when they were living in it. Be different.
Ooh.
And
Those
then
type of
that's the
houses, there's
top
just
house.
too many rooms. Too many rooms for a murder to happen in. I'm
Yeah.
uncomfortable. I'm asking questions.
I want this top house.
I'm digging.
The whole time I'm
I
like
am
this.
looking behind floorboards and like the wood on the wall
You
because
would
I'm
have
like,
found
there's a
that
body.
secret passageway in that hiding spot.
On
faster.
Amazon, I'm sure that there's something to like look for like skeleton remains behind walls. I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna find it.
A stud finder.
It just
kidding.
it doesn't beep literally, and I'm like knocking everywhere. Found one, and so yeah, and they are moving in. They're getting to walk in. They have a dog named Sadie, and she
Yeah,
is getting.
aw, Sadie.
I know, which is I also live with the dog named Sadie, and she's getting really bad vibes.
She was
from
like,
this
"Hell
house.
no.
She will not enter the
We ain't going
premises.
in. Trust your pets.
Truly, because they really pick up on like the energy that we don't.
That was what, like, whenever that thing flew off, Kitty was also freaked out. And I was like, oh, fuck, if she's scared, I should probably be scared. Because Kitty, like, gave zero fucks about anything in life.
They go off their
except
intuition.
For me.
They
she
feel
loved me.
the energy around themselves. They have, like, that sixth sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so they're getting stuff unboxed. They are moving things around.
Shot here, like a beautiful long shot with the wind chime, and it's like basically taking us through the house. And one of the girls, I forget which one it is, there's 5 of them, y'all, and I'm gonna get their names wrong.
So I've been practicing, I think. There's Andrea, Nancy, Cindy, Christine, and April.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I know April's name, and then I wrote down their names in here, but like I don't remember which one was running through. At this point it's Cindy, because Cindy's the one that was her wind chime. Yes.
She's the one who starts beating her head later on, like the headboard or the wardrobe, because she's sleepwalking.
Oh, they have different. Oh, okay, wait. These are their actual names. Sorry, I was like, what the hell? Because look, I have this list of the actor with the actual.
Oh,
person
Mackenzie and all that.
Yeah, Cindy Perrin. Yep, she was running through. But anyways, that was a nice long shot. It was one actual shot, and it was bringing us through kind of each room of the bottom of the house, and it was really, really neat. I thought that it was good, nice.
Good cinema.
Yep. Yeah. And then she yells out the back because April's found a little music box.
She found a toy out there. Yeah, which I'm like, was it out there already? I'm sure it was, because... But then later we see where
think he placed it.
We found it. Yeah, exactly. But she finds it, and we see her see something in like the reflection of it. But when she looks back, we don't see it. But obviously we see later what is actually there.
That she's found Rory.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's whenever they end up playing clap and seek inside. Hide and clap. There we go. Yeah. Hide and clap.
And this is, like I said, the scene that made me be like, fuck, I want to go see this film. Not this one exactly. It was, I believe, well, I don't know. I do remember the hands coming out from the closet, and which now we know in this first scene that that's not a paranormal entity. But I do think it was Nancy, I believe, in there. Nancy. And she clapped, but I believe that was what they showed in the trailer, if I'm not mistaken. And it was still fucking creepy.
Yeah.
Even like, I mean, once you watch it, you're like, oh, that's not a ghost there. But in the trailer, you had no clue.
No, of course, she wouldn't know. Yeah. And so that's whenever they're playing this game. They're all running around.
Bumping into shit because they don't know the house.
Yeah, of course.
And there's boxes everywhere.
Right after they were eating pizza. And that's whenever they end up finding a secret basement, essentially, because... 2 of the girls are playing. They get to that little closet area, and one of them bumps into the wall.
Yep,
and we see it leads to that secret cellar.
Her elbow like goes through that board, and I'm like, damn, she must have got a strong elbow.
Yeah, and so that's whenever the dad comes up, and he's able to kind of take a look, and he breaks through it, and he goes down there, and there's just a bunch of old shit down there. Yeah, it gives very like haunted possessions.
Yeah, and the clearly like, I mean, because then later on, Carolyn's like, I wonder why it was boarded up. And I was like, it's clearly boarded up for a reason.
It has to be.
And I mean, I know it was the 70s, but like, nah, not matches. Like, why are you using matches as your light source? It burns up so quickly. I don't know. That was that makes it so scary. And that's what makes Carolyn's scene in the basement or cellar so scary as well, is that the matches, like, because we're like seeing it and then it goes out. And then, you know, you're also like getting that burn on your fingers kind of as it's happening too. And you're like, ah.
Because it burns so fast.
Yeah. And it's just, there's a lot of nice antiques down there.
I'm sure there were. Something you can actually make money, which they're bringing up, because they're like, especially the husband, he's like, we can sell some of this shit. Maybe there's something, you know, valuable.
Yeah, there was a cute curio cabinet down there. I was like, I want
it. And now, a word from our sponsors.
RogueCon 23. That's right. It is here. It's not back. It's here. It's the first one. Join the ultimate celebration of digital content with its creators, passionate fans, and industry experts. It is all happening in downtown Waco across multiple venues, January 20th through the 22nd of 2023. Now, if you want to go, you got to get tickets, and tickets are on sale at RogueCon23.com. That's RogueCon. RogueCon 23 farmiga.com. Be there. I'm going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. Check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't right, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.
Yeah, and so they're just looking at everything that's down here, and what would you think of everything that was down there?
I'd be like, hell yeah, jackpot.
Right? Take it to what's that? Antique rodeo show.
Roadshow.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
I
and
love
get it
that show.
appraised. Maybe there's something worth like $1 bajillion.
No, I'd just fucking keep it, and I'd be like, I'm so lucky.
It's true. You
That's
probably
what I
would,
would
and it
do.
would be like decor in your house.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I mean, that's what a lot of mine actually
come
look
from?
Like. So yeah.
Or
but
from like what are those called? Whenever people die, estate sales.
estate sales. Yeah, I do have a lot of stuff from estate
Mhm.
sales. I love dead people shit.
But continue.
I don't know where it was. I don't know. They're heading back upstairs though,
Yeah.
and Ed drops some matches on the stairs, and that's kind of I feel like an important part because then
Mhm.
she'll be able to pick it up
Later on in the film. Yes.
Yeah, and then I'm wondering like here. I mean, I know she's not like possessed, but I feel like at this point the dark entity is already latched onto Carolyn
Mhm.
because Sadie's like losing her mind barking at Carolyn,
yeah.
and
Sadie
like-
senses definitely that something is off.
yeah, I feel
with
like
the
that
house,
dark
with her
spirit that
Mhm.
Lorraine talks about later on. I feel like it was basically like it zeroed in on her
Mhm.
immediately
Yeah.
and was just like, okay, you're my person, and that's why I feel like Sadie was more hesitant towards her
Yeah.
in general.
I looked up into a lot of the actual case of what happened as well, and the daughters actually, one of them later on in an interview said that the like Bathsheba character, ghost like spirit, really like in hindsight was jealous and coveted like the spot of her mother of like having them as her children and was lustful after her father.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the whole Bathsheba story in general, like Bathsheba she was a person who existed. You
Mhm.
can go find her tombstone in
storyline.
Rhode Island.
Yeah.
However, to me, it personally sounds like someone who's just been wrongfully acclaimed
Mm-hmm.
because it was around it was shortly after the height of the witch trials
Salem
and
witch
everything.
trials. Yeah.
But I feel like she's still very like wrongly accused. I don't know. She could have also been, doing evil things, but it sounds like someone's name who's just been tarnished by like shithole kids lying and making up stories. And there was like a story that she had killed an infant because she was watching over this child, and I don't believe it was her child, but it was
Gotcha.
one that was in her care, and the child died. And then they said they found that there was basically she stabbed like a sewing or a knitting needle
Mhm.
into the like back, this nape
Oh
of
wow.
the
the baby.
baby's head,
Mm.
neck, and then that's how it died.
intense. Yeah.
And so then there is, according to Andrea, so the real life Andrea Perrin actually wrote a book, and I believe maybe even a 3-part book called like House of Darkness, House of Light, I believe, or maybe it's reversed. And there is this is like the whole reason they latched on to Bathsheba in general is because one point Carolyn was like sleeping on the couch, and all of a sudden this very sharp stab came to her calf,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was a pool of blood underneath it, and the wound itself was a very like concise, very like perfect circle basically that just looked like someone was like stabbed
Yeah.
with say a knitting
That's
needle
crazy. Yeah.
or something. And then so they simply started referring, Lorraine Warren like heard this and simply just started referring to the entity as Bathsheba.
Gotcha.
It's not necessarily true that is
It was
the
all linked
entity's
together.
name.
Yeah. Well, a lot
Yeah.
of this too. I mean, the Warrens kind of for a lot of added their own flavor to it. Like they frothed it up.
Yeah.
They added the foam and the substance. They didn't
They did.
necessarily. It's not like it's necessarily. it's like a half truth, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, you know. But some of this stuff did actually happen, but
Yes.
them, you know, layering stuff onto it as well.
And they have to make stuff obviously more theatrical
Appealable.
and
Mm-hmm.
more, appealing for the actual screen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, it's not necessarily as, I don't know, exciting.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
they
for
had
sure.
to do that. And they did have Lorraine actually on
Set.
the set too a lot of the times, not all the time, but then also
But
Vera
of course,
and
if like it's your life, you're gonna make yourself seem like pretty
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of the actual sisters and stuff were on, and the mom, they all came
Mhm.
to the set as well. And apparently one time Carolyn remarked that she got the same like cold, evil feeling that she did when she was in that
Yeah.
house.
Well, yeah, and then apparently towards the end of like of it all, when they were doing the filming and stuff, and they were going to set, the mom stayed home one time, and she like fell and hurt herself and like broke her hip.
I think she might have fallen at the set and had to be rushed to the hospital.
That's
and
what it was.
Had to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she
Yeah.
had an injury on the set. And then also, so going back to
Not
a little
the
bit earlier.
daughter's like breaking her hip for like
Yeah. For
publicity.
publicity. Yeah.
Oh.
But Vera and Patrick actually spent 3 days like kind of picking Lorraine's mind. At this point, Ed had already passed. So it was only Lorraine
Mm-hmm.
that was able to consult on the film. But yeah, they spent 3 whole days like with her trying to really make sure that they were going to nail these characters, as they did kind of become the main highlight of the film and the
Yeah.
Conjuring series. As it was supposed to originally be focused on the Perron family and like be told from the parents' perspective. But then the 2 brothers who came in decided to then make it about the Warrens instead, which did work out because
For the franchise.
yeah,
For longevity.
it makes them be able to, for the Conjuring too. It's another case that the Warrens covered, the Annabelle doll, also the Warrens and stuff like that. So
Although they could have maybe even covered a whole span of movies with just the Perron family, because apparently all of this covered a span of a decade.
yeah, they lived
Because
in the house for almost 10 years.
because they couldn't afford to move anywhere else or lose the value of what they had paid to like live there from the get-go. So unfortunately they were like stuck there.
And at one point, like the dad in the film, he brings up a good point and he's like, I don't know anyone who's willing to take in a family of 7 on a whim.
They just
and
can't.
it's like, yeah,
It's just not
7 is,
logistically, like it's just too many people.
if it was like just, you and your partner, sure. But like 7 extra people, no one's house is that big.
I love how you're like not even a kid's coming over.
No,
Just
I don't
you and
want
a partner.
kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, no kids. Or, like,
Just not even you and a partner and a kid. But like no, just you and your partner. No, one kid out. You know,
the kid
sorry,
can
too many
sleep. I've got a
outside.
dog house. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
Literally.
gonna get like
JK.
sued for child abuse.
And so
don't have
we
a child.
come back to the movie. Miss Carolyn's woken up. She is going downstairs. She notices that there's some like the basement door is open, cellar door is open, but Roger's down there. He's going through a bunch of shit.
And on her way down, she wakes up covered in bruises.
Oh, she does.
She
yeah.
makes
She's
a
got
remark
bruises.
that the house is freezing. The girls are like, it's so cold.
And it smells at one point during the night for Andrea. It smelled like rotten meat. Yes.
Yeah, she was like, can we actually get a toilet or like a house with a toilet that works? And also, my room smelled like rotten meat. And then she was like, well, does it still smell like it? And she was
Nope.
like, no. And she was like, problem solved. And I was
Literally.
like, what a mom response. And we also see
yeah.
the first clock stopped at 3:07, that grandfather clock. But
So
yes.
all these little clues are happening throughout. And then we have her getting down to the cellar, and we've got light because Roger got a little light bulb working, and that's when they're looking at everything, and they're also just kind of going through everything. That's whenever this is the remark whenever he is like,
we
oh,
could get some money.
yeah, we can get some money off of all this, and Roger's kind of going through everything. And it's not too big of a plot point, but then yes, that's when we also look at those clocks stopping at 3:07. But then we're back in the kitchen, and that's whenever she does mention to him like, what did you do to me? And he's like, I didn't do that to you at the
Yeah.
bruises.
He's like, did I?
Yeah. And then we have April looking for
She's going to go find
Sadie, and
Sad.
she goes outside to get her, and that's when we see that Sadie is dead.
Yep.
Which always when there's a dog in any horror movie, you will gotta know it's gonna die.
Poor dogs.
Poor dogs, yeah.
Or birds.
Because the most innocent things die most of the
Yeah.
time in the movies, and so yeah,
And the cats always
it's
live.
dead. And so
They're
that's,
helping the spirits. So they're like, they're over there. Get them. I'm just kidding. I love cats.
And so
But really,
That's then we cut to, we have a different scene, and that's whenever we have this dude going and looking with Ed Warren through their spooky shit in their spooky shit room.
Yeah, the demon room's what I call it.
Yeah, there we go.
Basically, it is an actual room, and they used to open up to the public. I don't believe. I mean, especially with
like
Lorraine passing, yeah, that it was their like basically a haunted museum of sorts. And we're in Monroe, Connecticut at the Warren home.
Yeah, because it's obviously too evil to keep out in the world. But if you got a $20 bill, come and look at it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They definitely did it not like as open as Zach Bagan's haunted museum. It was more of like once a month they would kind of let people come in.
A few select people. Yeah.
I believe. I could also be talking out of my ass right now, but if I remember correctly.
Someone fact check us.
Yeah.
But no, don't
or not.
really. And so anyways, they are doing that. Yes, he's going through the room, and that's whenever we have their daughter, Judy. She's in there eavesdropping, and he's like, "What are you doing in here, silly?" After they looked at, like, the whole Annabelle doll and all these other, artifacts that they have, which all kind of play a role later on in other movies and kind of can also lead to other movies that we haven't even had. Like, I would be so interested to see some of the objects that they have in that room.
Yeah, like that big, like
samurai thing.
That was cool. Yeah, there's a lot of things in there. And basically he's saying, because the guy was like, well, why don't you just like get rid of them or like burn them or something? He was like, sometimes it's better to keep the genie in the bottle because otherwise these are all conduits and then they're going to just be out and about. So it's better to keep them in here.
Because you don't destroy the evil that's in it. You just destroy the vessel. And so then it's able to, you don't even know where it would go after that. It's open to go wherever it wants.
Floating around.
Yeah. And it will find something to latch onto.
It will. And he says they bring a priest by once a month to come and bless the room and everything like that. But yeah. So then it's 3:07 a.m. again though.
Yeah.
And it's time to yank some legs.
We're
with Nancy and Nancy and
Christine.
Christine, yes.
Christine who is played by Joey King.
The one who is getting yanked.
Yes, she is getting yanked. And she is in the bed. She starts smelling something funky and she's telling I think it's Nancy stop farting.
She's like,
and,
stop farting.
Yeah, and she's like, I'm not doing that. And so
she's like,
it's just a quick little snippet of like kind of things that are happening between them at night.
They're getting that rotten egg smell though, which is a telltale sign.
Something demonic. And so at the same time, the dad wakes up and starts hearing noises.
Yeah, there's static on the TV, thumping from the stairwell / cellar area.
There are doors opening and closing, and then it leads him kind of around, kind of like a little goose chase. But then he ends up hearing something else at that upstairs, and he goes upstairs, and that's whenever Andrea is like, Cindy is sleepwalking again. And they go into the room, and she's hitting her head on the wardrobe.
Yeah,
which is like, another reference to The Lion and the Witch. I'm just kidding. But I'm just thinking like, she's really just bumping her head. And that's even when Andrea is just like, I've never seen her do that before.
Yeah. I mean, she's not super hard, but with the amount of repetition that it's happened since we've heard like all those thumps, and she's hitting just the same spot. So eventually, a drip of water can erode rock and stuff, so like
she should be bleeding, blistering little skin. But yeah, he ends up stopping her, and he doesn't necessarily wake her, but he leads her back to her bed. And that kind of all happens, and then that's whenever I think it's the next day already, and the mom has more bruises.
Yep. Yeah, she's covered in quite a few, like more.
Yeah, and something is definitely like
we get
leaving
our first birdie.
Or visiting her in the middle of the night. We get the bird hitting the window when the dad is leaving for work. And it just kind of is a very bad omen already, and we get the older girls going to school.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Right here, I made a note of a very good use of the soundtrack. I personally really enjoyed the soundtrack in this film. Nice. There are a few times where it leads you, but then I liked how we would go from kind of like chaotic scenes to then just like silence within like loud average noises, as in like doors opening or something. And it's just everything else is quiet, but then we'll flash back to, orchestral stuff happening, and it's very like loud, and then it's just boom,
yeah.
Boom.
I will say too, I would listen to it with headphones for some of it, and they really played in like having like, also if you're not listening to it with headphones, I feel like you don't hear it. There's a lot of like little eerie like moans or like little breathing sounds in the background that you don't necessarily hear when you're like just playing it on the TV. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so that's whenever April is playing with her little ghost friend Rory.
Yeah, she's
in
having
her
a
bedroom,
full ass conversation with Roy,
and her mom comes in and is like, "Who are you talking to?"
Yeah, she's like, and she's like, "My friend Rory."
And she like tells her you can see him when you like turn the little music box, whatever. It's like a jack. What's it called?
It's kind of like a Jack in the Box.
There you go.
But it's also not, because the whole time it's like
just bobbing
in and out like a little whack-a-mole, and
Yeah.
then you've got that fun circular.
It's a
mirror
spiral.
rotating in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good. I
Which
mean,
is
it's
a
cool
nod
toy.
to because it's directed by James Wan, and he directed Saw, and it's a spiral.
That's right. Yeah, he did direct Saw. I almost
Excuse
said
me.
Swan.
Swan Lake.
I was thinking Juan
Black Swan.
and Saw. And
Yeah.
then so Swan is what my brain said.
And so that's whenever April wants to play hide and clap because she says the older girls never want to play with me. And so her mom's exactly. So they start playing
whenever
hide and
April
clap.
popped up behind her though, it kind of scared me a bit.
There's April
her
does that
mom.
a lot actually.
Yeah, she's a little spooky kid.
And so she ends up wanting to play with her. They do play. They start doing this little game and
Immediately,
Carolyn.
I'm like, those claps are too big to be April's.
Right? They're very heavy.
Yeah, I was like,
And so Carolyn is getting led around. She ends up going into, I believe it's Andrea's room where the wardrobe is. And she hears a little like clap thud going on in there. And then the door opens.
yeah.
And then she's like, oh, so you must be in here. And she's like, I hear you breathing. And
Yeah.
it's so creepy because you usually can hear it. And then that's whenever she's about to get in there and you see the little hands come out clapping. And then April comes running up from behind her being like, what are you doing, silly? I was in Nancy's room.
Yeah.
And then she like looks in there and she's freaking out because she's like, I clearly heard something like breathing in here.
And I think her, going back just a bit, her voice as she's looking, like her little sing-song voice and everything, like, I'm gonna get you and stuff, also made the scene like
It's so creepy.
extra creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, like you said, I can hear you breathing and stuff. And it's like, no,
It's very
don't
creepy.
touch it. Don't touch it.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this is so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
But
And
then,
so then after that, that's whenever we get the kind of scene setting up that dad has to leave.
Yeah.
Roger has to go because
He's
he
a
has
truck
to make
driver.
money and he's a truck driver and there's a like week turnaround going to Florida.
yeah. Yeah. So he's basically leaving them for a whole week. And that's like, I mean, as we can tell, obviously stuff is already kind of escalated. And so that's definitely not a good, definitely not a
Sign,
good thing.
yeah.
And then we flash back to Christine and she's homegirl sleeping with her feet out yet again.
Another time.
And I'm like,
Yep.
girl, no.
Yeah.
And then it pulls her once and then it
Yanks her really hard. Yeah. Enough to like freak her the fuck out because she's like, oh my God, there's obviously no one there.
Yeah,
So
she
she's
was like woken up
looking
immediately, like
around
red
the
alert.
bed, underneath the bed, around the room. And then
I
finally
don't understand
she's,
how she
yeah.
looked over the edge of that bed.
Yeah.
Like-
So many times, twice.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, girl, you are braver than me. I would have been
I wouldn't
throwing
have.
my pillows over there. Nancy would be like, "Bitch, get up, get up.
Yeah.
And I would have been like, is there something under my bed? Like,
It would have been like
freaking
me
out.
being on the ledge of the bed, a hop to the middle of the room, and then a hop to the light, turn on the light. Like, I don't know what, but
yeah, I would not have been like, oh, God.
just poking my head
And
underneath.
that shot was so good
Oh, yeah.
because it's almost like a first person POV and you're like following her over the edge of the bed and
Goes
it's
down.
terrifying.
And then you see like she hears something go by where the door is, and the door is creaking open, and then she's seeing something, and then she looks up and it follows her and she sees something behind the door, and then her sister wakes up but Nancy doesn't see it, and then she
She's like, "Do you
goes
see it?
by the door and she's
There's
like, oh my
someone
God, it's
behind the
right
door."
behind you.
Yeah.
And
I don't understand how Nancy got up either. Like if I woke up, saw my sister in such
Right.
hysterics,
Yeah.
like clearly freaked out.
Yeah.
Like more
Well, she
so
was.
than-
I mean, even so, she was like, "What's wrong?" Like, I feel like she was still, "What's wrong?" But if you
well,
don't
but
see what's
I don't
happening,
understand how she just got up
Mhm.
and walked towards the door.
Mhm.
Like I feel like I would have trusted my sister, and my immediate thought would be to hop beds to be with her and just hold each other and then cry and scream
and die.
scream until someone can come and get you. But
Yeah.
yeah, so Nancy gets up, goes to the door. We get that bad smell again,
Mhm.
and then yeah, she's like, oh my
And
God,
then
it's standing right behind you.
And then the door slams. Yeah.
And then of course they're screaming as
and you know
they should have been.
Christina's inconsolable as like Roger's trying to be like, what's even happening, and all that's happening, and
she
then
says it talked to me and it says it wants my family dead,
which is pretty eerie, pretty scary to hear your
Yeah.
kid say that as well, because
Like,
it doesn't, because at first you're probably as a parent should be like, it was just a bad dream, like like, you know, you probably just saw whatever, it was a bad dream, but then you're like, your kid's like, we're all gonna die, like, you
Yeah.
know, like that's
and
it's a
especially
lot.
like
It's
Christine
heavy.
seems to have a pretty level head.
Yeah.
She doesn't seem like too fanciful or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like for her to say that, it must have had a little bit of weight to
Yeah.
it, where they were like, oh shit, okay, we trust her.
And
but
we go back to the Warrens, and they're getting called to this little house to check out a haunt. They end up debunking it because there's a lot of like leaky pipes and like water and like wind, like all this stuff that's like accounting for what a lot of haunts, I'm essentially thinking, end up becoming, because there's a lot of explanations for things, and
Yeah,
it's
it was
very
like
rare where you actually get like a real haunt.
it was like the expansion of the furnace and stuff, and the water moving through the pipes, and whenever it, and with also the combination of the window being open, it was creaking the floorboards and basically making the house breathe.
Yeah.
And right before that, as they're going to go, he was basically going to go investigate without her. And this is one of the first times where I feel like we really kind of get an insight into how he doesn't really want Lorraine there because he's trying to protect her.
Yeah, he doesn't want to risk her getting hurt.
And then she
because
says,
there was a time before, which we kind of get a lot of flashbacks throughout the whole movie, where she was affected heavily by something that happened while they were doing a exorcism.
and she says to him, like, do you remember what you said, or what I said, or what you said to me on our wedding night? And he said, can we do it again? And then she's like, after that. And basically like saying that, like, you know, God brought us together for a reason, which also comes back later in
Another time.
but basically she's like, nah, we going.
And I'm gonna help you. You can't stop me. And so they end up, we cut back to the parents, and that's whenever Mama has more bruises. Miss Carolyn is bruised the fuck up. And I mean, at this point, it's giving way worse than like anemia. Like she is not have no deficiency. There's something going on.
Because these were massive bruises, like the size of like mangoes. And shit, like just huge.
I want a mango now. And so they end up, she's there at the house, and she hears a giggle. And at this point she's saying like, man, like you kids should be asleep. Like this, y'all, what are y'all doing? So she's like folding laundry and stuff, but then she's like, let me investigate.
And I like how it faked us out with that mirror shot on her little armoire.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because you think something's about to happen.
Because it always does. And so then it was like, nice.
Yeah,
I like
a little fake out. And then she's going investigating, but all the kids are asleep. So then when she's looking, and I think it's over, she's looking over Cindy. That's whenever she hears all the fucking pictures fall off the wall, and this thud is so loud and like eerie, and you hear like a little laughter going on in the background.
You can hear like footsteps running down the stairs.
Yeah. And so she runs out, obviously, to go check out what's happening. All the pictures that they have hung up are like literally on the ground, on the like shattered on the stairway, on the floor.
None of the girls woke up.
And also, I don't either. I thought one of them would have, especially Andrea, because her room was like right there. But also, Miss Carolyn just starts walking down the thing all on the stairway. And was she wearing slippers? She was. Okay. I was like, I don't remember.
But she did like
that.
step like right on a piece of glass.
I'm like,
what are you doing?
Stepping on all that glass. And so she's walking down there, and then that's whenever we do see that the basement door opens, as she's like, well, before that, the clock strikes. We're getting all these eerie things. She hears another clap. She's getting led throughout the house, and she's just kind of like getting spooked here and there because all these things are happening. And obviously there's not like she doesn't see anybody, you know, so it's very spooky.
And as the cellar door opens, we hear that same, like the three, according to my closed captioning, sour notes.
Oh yeah, because
she had played upon the discovery of the cellar.
Earlier. So it's a good little callback as well.
Which I feel like has to happen when you find an out-of-tune piano in a horror film. You are going to play some little memorable ditty, and then it will be played back to you at a later date, like in Hell House.
Yeah. And so she's like, so she ends up going down. She goes to like the beginning of the entrance of the cellar, goes down the steps, but she kind of looks and she's like, you know what? Nah. Whoever is down here, I'm going to lock you in now. But when she tries to go up, unfortunately, the door slams and knocks her down the stairs, and she gets...
It's quite a tumble.
Yeah, she tumbles all the way down, and she's down there. like literally. And so she's looking around and she's really spooked out. And that's whenever this ball just gets tossed across the room and does this little dribble on the floor, and it's really spooky.
Then was pretty funny.
It was, yeah.
But yeah, I was like, the soundtrack to that was kind of
perfect.
Comical, but then I was also like, but also hell no.
Because it's also like, it's comical, I think, also in a sense, because the spirits are really fucking with her at this moment. Because it's
Rory
like,
just wants to play. He's like, no, bitch, it's time to play. Play with the ball. We're gonna play hide and clap.
And then the light goes out.
Yeah.
And so she goes up the stairs. She finds those matches that were left there earlier by Roger, and she's able to light one. And that's whenever she's like freaking out a little bit. But then you hear little Rory saying, "Do you want to play hide and clap?"
Want to play hide and clap?
And then he sticks his little hand and claps, and then the light goes out, and she freaks out.
Yeah.
And then we just get an image of the like basement door just like not being able to be open.
And that's the scene that I said like still gives me shudders because it's so creepy. I mean, she's backed up to the wall and it's not humanly possible for anyone to be there. So it's like, nope.
And at the same time, we have Cindy sleepwalking again, and she ends up in Andrea's room and at that wardrobe, and she's doing the same thing. And whenever Andrea like brings her back and is like, okay, you can sleep in my bed, and puts her down, the wardrobe starts making the same noise again, and then it kind of does this little opening thing. In the three,
well.
Yes.
And then, I love the shot as like Andrea's walking up to it, and we're getting it from below. It takes up the whole screen.
Yeah.
It makes the armoire look so daunting. It's like just
as
this
she's
big,
walking
like,
up, yeah.
Takes up the whole screen. I was like, ah!
And then she goes to it, and then that's whenever she opens it, and then Cindy comes to, and she looks up, and she like eyes wide open is like, oh my God. And that's whenever it looks up, and there's this bitch on top of the armoire, which is Bathsheba, and she jumps on top of Andrea and she starts attacking her.
And this is my least favorite part of the movie.
Oh, why? Because you actually see like her.
I don't like the pan in on the face. I remember the first time I saw it, I'm like, meh.
I liked it.
I liked favorite part of the scene, like of the film, is when Lorraine has fallen through the wall, and you get the hanging feet that are struggling, and then they stop, and then they turn. Yeah, that to me is like 1,000 times more terrifying than that pan in on her face. Yeah, well, like, I feel you on that. Is like so much creepier. And I mean, I
also found that very comical.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, that part is not at all comical to me. That one's just like, nope, that's fucking scary. And the way that the mom, like the other lady, pops up, I like her face because it's believable.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like distorted or anything. But
whenever she's like, she made me do it.
Yeah. And it's just clear that she's been crying a lot. It's still terrifying with how close it is to her face. It's like, ah. Yeah. But I don't know. The panning on hers, I was just like, it could have been better. And so, I mean, I still like it. It's just if I had to choose a least favorite scene, it's that.
It's that one. Yeah. And so she's getting attacked. And that's whenever the dad gets back from work and he runs in because he hears everybody screaming. And he's like, essentially, as soon as he gets in, because it's all kind of invisible, he just doesn't know what's happening.
Yeah. Andrea's just like fighting someone on the ground. You just see her like squirming.
Exactly.
But nothing's there. And he's like, somebody can tell me what the fuck is going on? Because he literally just rolled up. He was like, beep, beep. And then he heard,
everybody screaming literally.
So he bolts. Yeah. And I mean, I also would be like, what the fuck is happening? If I came into my whole house erupted in screams.
Oh, yeah. Like, especially when you see her being on the floor and she's like fighting nothing.
Yeah. Because then you're like, oh my God, is she?
And
like,
then the mom was like locked downstairs. Yeah. So and then all the like picture frames are on the floor. And so shattered. And so we have the students going over footage with Ed and Lorraine over an exorcism that they were performing over Maurice, who is this priest, which is kind of an introduction to a storyline that we get later through The Nun, which is another spinoff from this series. And so that's when they would go over the 3 stages of a possession, which is infestation, oppression, and then finally possession.
Yeah, and the infestation's when you're hearing like the whispering, the footsteps, and you can sense another presence there. And then the oppression is when it does target the most psychologically vulnerable and kind of latch on. And then the possession is, of course, whenever it takes over the actual body. In this scene, Lorraine Warren is in the front row. Yeah. She makes a cameo. Like actual Lorraine Warren.
She's there. Yeah.
Yeah, she's in there. And this is when we see that Carolyn has gone there because she's like, no, something is fucking wrong.
Mama is in the audience.
And she thankfully does approach Drew. And Drew is like,
cute Drew.
Yeah. Yay, Drew. But then he's like, okay, no, this seems legit. I'm going to actually introduce you to the Warrens. And they agree to come check out the house. At first they were like,
they do. Yeah. No, but
we're tired.
It's Carolyn's like plead of like, you know, this from one mom to another mom and father, like, please help us.
She
like,
looks
I'm terrified
so
for my
desperate.
family.
Yeah.
And so they do agree. They arrive to the house, and then that's whenever they come up, they are meeting the family. I love the pan and also too when they are pulling up to the house where it's like it's very ominous and they're like coming in. But they do meet Roger, and as soon as they walk in, Lorraine is already just like, nah, I get very bad vibes from this.
Even just
immediate.
her body language.
Yeah,
like she's not saying anything yet. She doesn't say anything.
Vera Farmiga is like her acting is very like at this point, like you can tell that she is not comfortable anymore.
Yeah, and she's looking at each of them kind of weird, like she almost flinches
when they're meeting the family. Yeah, which we do find out later why, but at this point it's just like giving a statement more to like she can tell something is off, and they're talking to them and they're telling them about like the rancid smells that they're smelling.
They've tied the doors shut because they bang at night.
Exactly, and how all the knocks come in 3.
Yeah, and Ed's the one who brings it up. He's like, do they come in 3s? Or because he goes just like this, dun, dun, dun. Yeah. And then Ed's like, they come in 3s? And he was like, yeah, actually all of them. And he goes, and they stop at dawn? And he was like, yep. And this is where we understand that the 3 is a mocking of the Holy Trinity. And that's why 3 o'clock is the witching hour, essentially, as well, because it is, again, it's directly mocking the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
And then we also have Lorraine picking up a lot of like vibes throughout the entire, like every time you get a pan in on her, she's really just like being like, oh shit, something's off here.
Yeah, she's not comfy.
Yeah, and so then they start a recording and they're kind of going over like, you know, this is Ed and Lorraine. Like we were here with the parents. We were going over all of this.
And it was November 1st.
They give the date.
Halloween happened.
And that's whenever we have Lorraine talking to April about Rory always being sad. And Lorraine asks if she can see Rory, so she asks her to play with the toy, and so she does a little thing where she spins it and she looks in it, and it's a little moment to set you up for a good little scare because she does end up seeing Rory.
And I love, so at this point, so every time I feel like we get and we're looking at that spiral, it takes a hot second for the camera to focus and for you to actually be able to see the reflection. And then this one, after she does get that stop and she's like finally fixated on one area, it happens twice. It rotates twice, and you don't get it until the 3rd reflection or like the 3rd rotation of the spiral. And I feel like that builds a lot of good anticipation. And then he's gone.
Ties
it's
into
just
the
a
3.
flash. Yeah.
And and then that's whenever she also goes outside to look around the property, and she goes to the lake, and then Ed comes up to get her, and that's whenever she sees a woman hanged.
Yep. We just see
right above
Bathsheba's
him.
little feetsies.
So at this point, they're basically just like, y'all need an exorcism.
Yeah.
Because this is a lot of bad juju, and if you even try to leave and go anywhere, there's no point because it's following you and it's latched onto you.
Yeah.
And that's
it's
whenever
feeding on you and leaving won't do anything.
And that's when we get the call, like we flash back to when she was meeting them and we see this entity latched onto their family.
And then we also, this is where we get the mention of Roger saying like, we bought the house at auction. We basically like sunk all of our savings into this.
We can't leave. Yeah.
And we
we can't sell.
The comment of who's going to take in a family of 7 on a whim. Like it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then as they're leaving the house, basically Ed is explaining like how the church has to actually authorize an exorcism first. Like it's not just something
they can
get willy-nilly
proof.
Yeah. The Vatican's not handing out exorcisms. And basically they have to gather the evidence. And then he was like, are you a church going? Because he was like, are any of the kids baptized? And he was like, no, we never got around to that. Like we're not really a church going family. And he was like, you might want to consider being one because us being here is gonna piss them off.
Disturb the spirits. Yeah. And
'Cause
he
we're a
also
threat.
tells them we're going to do our homework and we're going to figure out, like, we know the history of this place. So best to combat it. And so, yeah, they are back home. They are listening to the playback as they are also going over the notes of what Lorraine has came to like know and her studying up on the house.
And right before that, her daughter gives Judy, yes,
the
gives
locket.
her mom the locket, which is important.
And that's whenever they're going through it, but the recording has nothing on it because apparently something had like you stopped the recording or like deleted what was on it.
Yeah,
and
you just couldn't hear Carolyn's voice at all.
Yeah,
because I believe the entity was blocking it. You could hear everyone else,
but hers. Yeah,
but hers.
And we learned that Bathsheba was a witch. She had like just come through. Her sister was like part of the Salem witch trials.
Yeah, she was in 1863 was when the house was built by Judson Sherman, and who was married to Bathsheba. And Marytown Esty was a relative and was hung and tried in the witch trials. And then it said that she was caught sacrificing her baby at 7 days old. So she ran out to the tree, proclaimed her love to Satan, cursed anyone who tried to take her land, and hung herself, which is like so dramatic.
Very dramatic.
And it's like, no.
But, you know.
And the time of death was 3:07 a.m.
And that's why the clock stopped at 3:07. And that's after all of this gets, explained and stuff. That's whenever we have them going back to the house. And that's whenever we meet our officer.
Not before, though.
Oh, what happened right before?
So we also do get
Tell me.
In the 30s, we got the name of Walker killing herself in the cellar after her son mysteriously went missing. But then the recorder starts playing at 3:07.
Oh, that's right.
In their house. And then instead of like Carolyn speaking, it's like wails.
The demon voice.
It's like,
yes.
Just like in the background the whole time. But yes, now Drew and Brad, they get to meet. Number one couple of the year.
And that's whenever Drew gets to give his little quibble of being like, well, you can't shoot Ghost with the gun because the officer's like, I'm here and I'm ready to protect y'all.
Yeah, and it's like, nope, this is an unseen force, buddy. What?
Yep.
Sometimes
but
seen.
Do your best.
Yeah.
And so they're setting up around the house with some cameras. It's giving very grave encounters. They're setting up all these cameras around.
Yeah.
And they want to, make sure they record everything. And because they're trying to get proof so that way they can get the Vatican to approve of the exorcism.
And they've got a lot of cool, like obviously it's older equipment, but like they've got the temperature basically censored cameras that are triggered to go off when a sudden cold drop happens.
They take a flash.
Motion sensed ones and stuff like that. And it's really cool.
Then we have Lorraine and Miss Carolyn talking about this family trip that she always will like have near and dear to her heart because they come across the pictures and the photographs. And that's whenever she also tells her like, we were putting these up, but they kept falling down. So we just stopped. And this will come back later on. And it's very important because this is a memory that really helps Carolyn like keep her family as her like rock in holding her onto this realm whenever she starts getting fucked with Bathsheba.
Yeah.
And so it's just setting a lot up for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. And we see that Lorraine gets it as an insight just from touching.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
touching Carolyn.
Up her power in the movie as well. Because she's an X-Men.
Although it clearly looks like to me that they're at the beach in that picture, but also it could have just been a nice grassy field.
Like, you go to see like a clairvoyant and she's like, oh, do you have a last name? Ooh, were you born? Ooh,
yeah.
Did you eat yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she was like, oh, what a lovely day at the beach. And she was like, how do you know? And I was like, oh, the fucking picture.
Yeah, literally. You're on the beach.
But
yeah.
Whatever. I mean, when you look at the picture, you can't actually see a beach at all. It's like almost shot from underneath the family, and so you just get the bright blue sky.
But you can tell.
But yeah, to me, I don't know.
Even and the attire that they're wearing. Yeah.
Even though they didn't plan to go to the beach, they were just driving through, saw the scenery, and one of them had pointed out like, "Oh, it looks so nice," and then they were like, "Let's stop."
Yeah.
And stuff, and so they did. But yeah, and then
I know. Scoff. We have this fucking slut.
Yeah.
Andrea flirting with
getting
Drew.
Getting in the way of my boy love.
And she's flirting with Drew. And
I'm gonna go write
like
a fan
kind
fiction,
of like, do it. They're vibing. I will say they're vibing. But then, Ed comes in and he's like, did you get the cameras up, whatever.
Yeah,
And he's
and
like,
they said far out.
far out. Yeah.
groovy.
Well,
And
they're
I was
in the
like,
70s.
I know, but it felt so
They're
placed.
hippies. And so they're setting up crosses as well, because apparently when you set up the crosses, it's kind of like, supposed to protect, but also it kind
riles them up.
It riles them up. Exactly.
The religious icons, presence of religious icons are there to just basically piss them off.
So at this point, they start getting bells jingling. They get a camera flashing.
Oh, and Brad had come out of the bathroom.
The bathroom.
He
yeah.
opened the door, but like hadn't flushed yet or anything. So everyone was like,
yeah.
And then it was like, oh.
It was just
me.
Brad. But yeah, all that's happening. Night 18, they start going into the cellar because the door opened on its own. And so whenever they start getting to that, there's kind of no reaction in the basement when they're down there, because they're like, if you're down here, speak, say something, let us know that you're here. And Lorena's like, nah, it's dead. It's gone.
Yeah, because at first she was kind of like she had herself
she was like,
braced
there's something here
on one of the pillars, and she looked like she was like buckled over, like struggling to breathe, and was like, oh God, my hands they're freezing. And then all of a sudden she's like, nope, it's gone.
It's gone, literally.
And they walk upstairs, and then the moment they're out, door slams.
Yeah.
They were just like, nah, get out of here. We don't want to play right now. Rory's like, I'm trying to sleep.
Yeah. And then that's whenever even like, Brad was a little skeptical, and they all see it. And so they're like, oh, wow. Yeah, it must have been a draft. And so it's already the next day. And
then this is, sorry, Drew does say, Drew moment. He says, a draft never put that look on my face before. And I was like, you sassy motherfucker. I love you. And then I put power couple. Wow.
Ship them. And so we have then, it's the next day. We have Lorraine and Ed outside. They're talking about like, Ed's basically being like, I want to have another baby. Essentially, I could get used to this, like having a family of our own.
Air. I was like,
open
in this
air.
House, this is giving you like,
yeah,
you
I know, right?
Here?
Haunting, but yeah. And so they're doing a weather or whatever. She's like, I want to help this family. And he's like, I'll start by working on the motor of this Chevy or whatever. So he's going to work on some car.
Oh, yeah, because all of the children have left. The dad, Roger, took them out to go get ice cream. And then Lorraine was like, why don't you just like stay? Or Carolyn had suggested, I think I might just take a nap. And then they were like, that's actually a good idea. You should get some rest. And so that's why Lorraine was outside doing the laundry.
For her, yeah.
And because she was helping out around the house, because Carolyn's clearly like
she's exhausted.
She's
getting drained daily.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's whenever she's out there and the weather starts changing.
And one of the best scenes also. I love this scene.
Yeah, because she's trying to pull like these sheets off super fast.
Fucking fast.
Because it's about to rain. And so she's trying to get them in the thing, and she pulls the sheets off. And that's whenever they go off the clothespin and they fly with the wind, and they go onto like a body essentially.
Yeah.
You get the outline and the silhouette.
Rather close to her. This body, like it gets
very
caught
freaky.
on it. And it was like, that's like literally maybe 3 feet away from her.
Sheet ghost.
And then it goes right up to the window.
Yep.
It gets kind of stuck there, and then it like gets like around the corner, and then you see in its place now is someone in a white nightgown with her hair down, who we now know is Bathsheba based on her appearance. And then she just turns and like walks towards the bed, because we know that that's Carolyn's room.
Yeah.
Because Carolyn has looked out of that window before and looked down. We kind of got her looking outside of it the first time. That's when Sadie was losing her mind at the window and was like, bark, 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 bark.
Yeah, going
That's
off.
exactly how Sadie barked.
Yeah. And so, yeah. It's so crazy, because it's just like at that point too, she's like freaking out, 'cause she's like, what the fuck? And so she's going up, and that's whenever she tries to get to Carolyn, but then Carolyn ends up coming from the restroom, and she's like, I'm fine, everything's fine.
Oh, and we saw Bathsheba puke blood in her mouth.
That's right. Yeah, she did puke blood.
Like,
so it's just like, oh my God, she just vomited all in her mouth. So
now
obviously at this point she is possessed. Yes.
Because she comes out, she's clearly not herself. She blows Lorraine off.
She's like, oh, I hear Roger and the kids.
Yeah, and it's like, bitch, no, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
You're clearly not okay either. But okay. If I was Lorraine, I'd been like, nah, sit the fuck down, you trick ass bitch.
Yeah.
But probably didn't say that in the 70s.
No, you don't. And so at this point, then we have, who is it? Roger talking to Ed?
Yeah, because he comes home, he sees that Ed's working on the Chevy.
Exactly.
And so they're having a nice little
bro chat.
man to man, heart to heart.
And they're going over like why Ed essentially wanted to help them, and he's like, "Oh, I honestly didn't even want to help you. It's all only because Lorraine wanted to help you."
Yeah, because he says every time that we come out here and do stuff like this, like every person Lorraine helps and touches and stuff, it helps them, but each time it takes a little piece of her. And he said in a couple months ago, it took a real big piece.
Yep. It really did. Yeah. That was what they're talking about, the exorcism that they were doing with that priest.
Yeah.
Which we get a callback later to with another film called The Nun.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. But yeah.
And he said that after that one, she went into, like, basically she didn't say anything the whole ride home, went into her room, like,
Didn't
or the
talk for 8
office.
days.
Yeah, locked herself in there, didn't eat, didn't talk, didn't do anything for 8 days. And then she came out and never spoke about it. And he's like, and I'm never going to ask her.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want her to relive that, basically.
Yeah.
Because she saw something whenever the demon latched, or the guy held on to her, gripped her. Because, yeah, we see that later when she's like, ah. But
yeah.
anyways, Brad goes down to get some coffee.
He does. And this is whenever he's kind of freaking out, because at this point he sees outside, he hears the wind whistling. He
hears
that
an
there's
actual whisper.
It's a whisper.
See,
Look what you made me do.
Look what you made me do.
Boom. Come on, Taylor Swift. And
that was all I could think of this whole time.
The chair was rocking outside. He goes outside, but he doesn't really necessarily see anything. So when he comes inside, he turns to his right, and there's a girl, and she looks like a maid. She looks like a maiden, and she
is a maid.
Had her slits wrist.
She had her wrist slit.
Slits wrist.
She had her wrist.
There you go. She wristed her slits. But anyways, she was
Sounds
literally. It does. She had her wrist slit, and she was saying, "Look what she made me do." He goes up to her, but she like
blonde.
just disappears.
It was Taylor Swift. It was a cameo.
It was. She disappears, but then
it wasn't really you guys.
This is what inspired it though, because this came out before "Look What She Made Me Do," and
she
so
watched it and was like, "This is me."
Can the old Taylor Swift come to the phone right now? Oh no! Why?
I'm sorry.
Because she's dead. But anyways, we're not Swifties. But
I'm
then,
really not.
No, I'm really not either. But for some reason, I know literally every single. That's what I was about to say. And so
you can't
we have her then getting. Or sorry, he goes up to the body, but then it kind of slips away from him, and he's freaking out.
He's like, what the
and
hell?
Then she just comes out of nowhere and runs up on him.
She's charging him. Look what she made me do.
Look what she made me do. And he freaks the fuck out. He's calling out Roger's name. And Ed's name, and he's freaking out. It's Ed's name, so bad. He's calling it out. And that's whenever he comes in, and she's like, there was something here. There was somebody here. And then they're like freaking everybody out. And then that's whenever something's happening with Cindy.
Yeah, Cindy is being led. Well, she's being led upstairs
by an entity.
Yeah.
At this point, it looks like she's sleepwalking. But
it does. Yes, it does look like she's sleepwalking. But then Ed's like, no, those cameras are triggered by, because we watched all of them run past it.
Yeah.
And so those were some of the cameras triggered by the drop in temperature.
Yeah.
And he says something's with her. She's not alone.
Something's leading her that way.
And then basically she gets up to the room. The door's locked. So they're like, get on the headphones. Drew's like, little detective. He throws on the headphones, and he's like, guys, there's somebody in there with her and stuff. Yeah. And then that's when they were finally able to get in.
They are, yeah. And so they get in, and that's whenever they see that nobody's in there, because they're like, where the fuck is Cindy? And so they're looking for her. But right before that was because something told Cindy, come and follow me into my hiding spot.
Yeah, and that was how Drew knew that someone was in there, because he was hearing Rory telling her, like, it's safe over here. This is where I hide when I'm scared.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And so they're using the UV lights, because they're like, get the UV lights. And so they use UV lights, and they see the handprints or footprints go all the way up to the wardrobe, and then handprints at the back of the wardrobe. And they get into like the secret compartment area where they slide back, and there's a hole in the wall, and Cindy's back there, and she's just like half asleep. Yeah, just taking a little nap, and they pull her out of there. And
sorry, my notes here just say, literally love Drew so much. 10 out of 5 boosts for Drew. I'm sure he didn't do anything except exist.
Shout out to Drew.
I think it was whenever he was like, go get the UV light.
Yeah.
And then Drew was like, go, hurry.
Here
after he hands it to Brad. And so then I was like,
because Brad didn't know what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's whenever they find that whole area. And then after that, we have Lorraine.
Kind of a creepy little crawl space.
Yeah, it is. We have Lorraine checking it out.
But
she
also
goes
I
in
would have
there.
lived for that shit as a kid.
Me too. I love whenever there's like houses that have those little like closets, and then like there's like a little secret room in there, like kind of thing.
There was so many, like, so my mom, you know, she was an artist, and she did a lot of nicer like houses before their open houses, like as they were being built, and all the time we'd get to go to the open houses, and my mom would be like, try and find how many secret rooms are in here. So then we'd just go through, and that was what would occupy us the whole time, is like pressing on every bookshelf, trying to get through. So cool. And a lot of them did. They had like, there was one, I think there was like 3 or 4 secret rooms where the bookshelves would either push in or like open out. It was cool.
So what's real funny too is I had like, in high school, I had a friend. She and I somehow, and I feel like it was more led by her, we one time or 2-3 times, we started going to like the richer neighborhoods, like by the Lake Waco, and there were some houses still being like in construction, and we would at night go and like sneak in because they wouldn't have any type of like security, and we would just go into them, and they're like be half constructed, but we would like go through them and so like dangerous. Go climb onto the roof and like I would literally walked across beams that like had nothing like below them, and like because I didn't care about my life. I was like 17, and so and would climb onto the roof, and we like weren't even doing drugs or anything or drinking. We were just like sitting there just like, wow, like look at all this. And then at another point I started dating someone who liked to go to like suburbs, you know, those suburbs where it's like these little communities where they like start building all these houses that look the same, but they're like 2 feet of little whatever. And so they would have all these just like houses that were half built or like almost built all the way, but like they would be, you could like open up a window and get into them, or like, you know,
lock your fucking windows, y'all.
And so we would do that. And so it'd be really cool. And there was a lot of houses with like secret, like little closets and nooks that like were like, oh wow, look at that.
That's so fun. I love it.
But yeah. And so they're doing that. She's going through this secret nook. She's seeing that it was basically Rory's favorite hiding spot because there's toys. She sees that, you know, she's like, go and get Rory's toy from April, and she puts it and fits it right in the same spot that it used to be.
Because the dust had settled everywhere else, but then there was this clear like octagonal shape on the base, which matched up perfectly with his little music box. And then while she was while she was back there, she just starts pulling on this rope, and I was like, girl, that's a sturdy rope.
Like, I already thought like there's gonna be a body at the end of that, but she ends up pulling up this rope, and it's a noose. Must have been the one that the mom hung herself in. Yeah, because she probably was very upset after killing Rory and like went through his hideout and then just like jumped off. Could have.
That's what I imagine. And then since it was in the walls, no one ever found it. I just imagine her little bones were down there at the bottom too.
You're imagining a lot.
I want them to be there.
And so that's whenever fucking Lorraine falls through this freaking floor. And I love the shot of it like going around, because she's like, it's like goes in a circle around her as she's falling down.
And then I put cue one of my favorite scenes, and fucking Eddie boy is freaking out. He's like, Lorraine. Which, I mean, I would be too.
Yeah, and he runs down, obviously, all the ways they go to the cellar because she's falling through all the way and gone to the cellar.
I feel like he never actually makes it down to the cellar.
No, not because I feel like we're seeing what's happening to her, and I feel like we see it in our time frame, but in the time that it has like taken him to go down there, I feel like this is all happening in a matter of seconds. You know what I mean?
I definitely think it is. And this is another place where I really love the contrast of the soundtrack, because as we're following Ed down, he's like screaming. The music is so loud. It's like heavy strings. And then we pan back to her and it's like dead silent. And then you just hear weeping.
The weeping. And she's like, she knows what she did.
And all of a sudden the music box goes like, and then so she's like, ooh. So she picks it up being like, can I see the mom too, basically. And she does. She sees, like, in the reflection, she sees a mom, or this woman who we saw in the picture earlier
Rory's
was the
mom,
Walkers.
right?
Yeah. And was leaning over Rory with a knife in her head saying, like, she made me do it. And then she looks behind her, not there. And then she looks back in it again, and then she pulls it down, and she's like,
in front of her.
Look what she made me do. She made me do it.
Yeah.
And that was good.
Yeah.
And again, I liked her face there because it looked believable. And then right as all that's happening, because she starts, her head like creaks, and it sounds like a rope also like going like, the way that her head's turning, and she's like, and then you see the feet go boom,
and they fall. And so it's like someone essentially dangling in front of where Lorraine is, but she's under a table, so you only see the bottom of the feet.
Yep. And it's the same feet that we saw earlier hanging from the tree whenever Lorraine first saw Bathsheba's like entity.
Yeah.
And I again love the abrupt like stop because it was moving so quickly and then it was like stop moving. And then it slow turns until the feet are facing her, like as if she was facing her head on. And I'm like, hell fucking nah.
No, I'd be
Hell
out.
no. That is fucking scary.
And so then she's essentially freaking out in her own quiet solitude as this is happening. And then that's whenever we have as well at the upside of everything, as she goes up, the crosses start turning upside down.
Yeah.
Right?
And as she's running up, her locket gets something grabs her locket.
That's right.
It's not even caught on anything. There's like
it pulls her locket away from her
until it pops off of her neck. And it's like, this locket has a photo of Judy. Her daughter, as we saw earlier when it was gifted to her. And it's like a direct link. Basically, they're matching sets. And so it's like, ugh, poor Judy. But then, she runs up. The crosses are starting to fall. And as soon as she gets up, she says she possesses the mother to kill the child. She's feeding on Carolyn. Yeah. And Carolyn's like, what?
Yeah.
She's like, oh shit, I've been found out already.
And then we have Nancy's hair getting pulled up and she just starts getting yeeted across the room. Like just out of everybody, Nancy just gets the worst out of it. Yeah.
I know.
She gets fucking thrown around. And then everybody's freaking out. And so they all start leaving, obviously, at this point, because it's just like, this is a lot.
And Lorraine came in. Sorry. The way they get her to stop being... Lorraine cuts off like a fuck ton of her hair.
Yeah.
And it's just like a patch. So the homegirl's going to need to get a bob after this.
Poor thing.
It was like
a lot more than a bob,
5
Caitlin.
inches.
She's going to need like years of therapy, but she doesn't because they end up writing books. But
she's going to have to dye her hair multiple times to cope with the trauma.
Yeah.
And then shave her head at least twice.
They end up leaving. And that's whenever they start... I think at this point, Lorraine sees like a vision of Judy.
Yeah, she hears Judy's voice saying, Mom.
Yeah, exactly. And that's whenever she sees her drowning in the water at the lake, at the house. And so it's like a sign to her that like Judy's in danger.
The floating through the river there, it looked very, like when Meg is floating in the water in Hercules.
Yeah.
It looked like that because
the
of
river
how
of souls or whatever.
How drawn out her like fucking nightgown was.
Yeah,
she just looked like she was going into the souls. Yeah,
give me the Lord of the Rings. Like whenever Frodo was by that river,
that one marsh.
Yes, and all the souls are in there. And so
that scene could be in a horror film.
It could. I love the Lord of the Rings.
Me too.
But anyways, they are the parents arrive to a motel. They're all trying to get settled in. This is obviously their new digs because like their house is infested. And so the Warrens get to show like photos and all the stuff that has happened in the proof to the priest
because they're basically like
approve
he
the
looked
exorcism.
At Drew and was like, you got all that right? And they're like, we going to the priest right now.
And so they're getting it fast tracked. Yeah. And the priest is just like, I'm going to fast track this and get it approved myself.
Because it has to come from the Vatican.
Exactly. And obviously it's crucial because
get your rush order exorcism here.
Exactly. Because they're, in dire need of it or else someone's life is on the line. And so that's whenever, something is up with Judy.
Yeah. We pan to Judy's room. I love to find things that I have in horror films. The little lamb figuring / planter sitting right behind where her locket is. I have one that is almost identical to it that I picked up the other day. But anyways, yes, the locket starts going
spinning around, and that's whenever she also gets tugged, just how like Christine got tugged. And then we're like, oh, what's going on? So she gets woken up. She goes out of her room and she's like trying to call out for her mom and dad. But obviously they're not there. And that's whenever she goes downstairs. And I love the pan of like the shot of it going upstairs while she's all the way up there. And so she ends up going downstairs.
We see demon doors open.
The demon door room is open. And that's whenever she's like.
And we see, I don't think we see that she doesn't see that Annabelle's gone, but we see that Annabelle is missing from the cabinet.
The cabinet, yes.
Yeah. And then she goes back into the hallway and the lights start shutting off up the stairs, and then this darkness just overtakes the house. And that's such a cool scene. Fucking terrifying.
The lights go out, yeah.
So scary.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
And then there's this loud banging happening on the door just from down that like the Judy locks herself in. Because obviously once the house starts overtaking, like the darkness is like, I would be like, "Wah!"
Freaking out.
So she runs into their study, I believe is what it is.
Yeah, very office giving like.
Yeah.
And that's whenever we see there's a rocking chair in the corner and it's rocking back and forth. And we see Bathsheba with Annabelle on her lap.
She's brushing her hair.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, Annabelle's hair is in braids.
No, yeah.
How you brushing a
But
braid?
she's kind of brushing the back of it.
Yeah. Just right down the little part.
And so she's there and she's freaking out as anyone should. And that's whenever at this time, it's like everything's happening at the same time. We have Ed and Lorraine getting home and they're like,
she's
oh
like,
my
"Something's
God,
wrong."
you know, yeah, something's wrong. And they run inside. And that's whenever they're screaming for her. And that's whenever we have the grandma like at the door trying to like bang to get in. And she's like, let me in.
And the rocking chair turns on its own.
The rocking chair does turn on its own. And
So
that's by the
scary.
time they get it open, it gets thrown at the door frame and they like just save her just in
Narrowly
time to
avoid
like
it.
get her before it hits somebody else, and it obviously breaks into like a little bitty pieces.
Yeah, it's splinters.
yeah
It was, that part was very unsettling.
Mhm.
Just like my fear of wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Empty rocking chairs also
add that to
unsettle
the
me.
list.
Yeah. The
Unlocked
other day,
new fear.
yeah, the other day I had to stay in a house for a bachelorette.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I got the room that had a fucking just rocking chair in it. And it's in this
Oh.
old house. And I was like, I can't look at that rocking chair.
Oh,
I was
I'm
like, I had to
sorry.
turn on my side. And I also left my AirPods in all night.
I like rocking chairs.
I like them too, and I totally would own one because I've
Mhm.
tried to get a Bentwood rocker. Well, not tried to. I could have easily gotten one.
Yeah, but the
And-
setting, the ambiance.
Yeah. I was just
Mhm.
like,
I
oh,
feel
this is scary. Also, when they were in the demon room, I was like, why does this low key look like my house? All the little trinkets
little
and
bit.
everything. I was like,
all the dolls.
I have all the.
And so, but at the same time that all this is happening, apparently Carolyn left the motel with Christine and April because we have
rotting meat.
and she smelled like rotting meat. We have Ed and Lorraine getting this phone call from the family, and so then they're like, "Snap! We gotta all meet back at the house." So apparently,
Lorraine's like, let's finish this together.
yeah, because that's whenever Ed is like, "I'm gonna leave you here," but she's like, "No, we didn't get called together by God to like write a book. We got
Yeah,
called together to banish demons."
That's right. They
Mhm.
really lean into that.
Yeah.
Because there's another mention of it too
Yeah.
later.
And so that's whenever they all arrive back to the house with the cop. The
Brad
cop
shoots the door
shoots
open.
the door open. He blows through. Carolyn is just screaming. That's whenever we get downstairs and already Drew is holding her back. And then that's like really chaotic. And they're all
She's
like,
like rabid.
she's rabid, literally.
She's trying
and
to
they're
stab
all trying to
Christine
like,
with a pair of scissors.
Mhm. They do end up getting Christine away from her, and at the same time, April is kind of witnessing everything, and she's just
No,
freaked out in the
April's-
kitchen or something like that, right?
April's missing.
Right.
We
well,
don't see
before
her.
that, we did
Oh.
see her before that. She was kind of like,
But by the
And
time
then-
Christine gets upstairs, April's gone.
exactly.
And they can't
then
find her.
They can't find her, and so then Drew is on the lookout for her after he hides Christine in the car, but that's whenever Mama is still in the basement. They've got her finally tied down with a sheet over her and tied onto a chair.
But before that, they try to take her out to take her to the priest.
Oh,
and
that's
she
true.
can't cross
no,
the threshold.
she can't. That's right. She can't
starts
leave the house.
burning up.
Yeah.
Like the way that her skin just starts like melting. It was like,
Mhm.
ooh, gross. But yes, she's drugged back. And
She's
then
bound by the house.
she's
yeah.
dragged back down.
Mm-hmm.
Like she is pulled
Oh,
from
she
them.
doesn't want to go down there because
Yeah.
she's also screaming
Grabs the
out.
door
At one
frame.
point, Carolyn actually comes to the body and she's like screaming for Roger.
Mhm.
And so that's whenever they do end up going back down there and they tie her down and,
And
they
she
get
gets
her.
a big old bite of Brad's face.
That's true. Yep. And so that's whenever all that's happening. It's very chaotic. They end up getting to tie her down and stuff. And they're like, well, what do we do? What do we do? And then Ed's like, I'm going to have to do the exorcism. Mhm.
And then he was like, but I want you to leave to Lorraine. And she was like,
Mhm. Nah.
absolutely not. And I was like,
One
yo,
more
this
time.
is
Yeah.
not the time for y'all to be fighting about her leaving. Like, yo, clearly you're in this together. She's already fucking here. Just let's do this shit.
Yeah.
And then ooh. So it was good. She was like, I'm going to go get the book. We
Yep.
follow Lorraine upstairs and we get this upside down shot as she's coming up, and then it like pans up, and then we get to see she's running out the door, but it's still a long shot, and we get Drew running upstairs still looking for April.
Yeah.
And it was such a very good shot.
A very nice cinematic
and it gave me
moment.
very as above, so below.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Love it. But then they're back downstairs, and they're starting the exorcism.
Yeah, they're starting the exorcism.
And
He starts
spramps her
speaking Latin
with holy water. She go cry cry.
They she really starts going crazy because at this point she also starts spouting out all these like, you know, demonic whatever language it is that she is speaking in tongues, and she then starts at one point the chair flips upside down, especially after it starts lifting up,
And while all
it
this
goes
is
to the
happening,
ceiling.
the birds are like bombarding the houses
right.
and cars. They're like getting
very
through the window in the
chaotic.
car. Yeah. Birds are making it downstairs into the cellar. And it was so wild to me how the whole time, like while this is happening, and she's like fucking turning it upside down and stuff. The whole
She's
house,
spitting up like blood is coming out of their body.
Yeah.
Like at this point it seems like Carolyn is long gone, you know.
yeah. And
There's a lot.
it was crazy how the whole house seemed to be shaking, but like it was only in the basement. So then upstairs, while Drew is looking for April. It's completely still.
Yeah.
And like
which he does
quiet.
end up locating her underneath the kitchen.
Yes. And
which
he
gets
makes the mistake
of screaming
announcing
it
that.
out loud.
Yeah.
After they were able to kind of calm down Carolyn in the spirit of Bathsheba.
Because she kind of, after she flips upside down and bangs the chair like on the roof, and whenever she falls, it splinters and she's like free, which is bad. But
Very much.
Roger's like yelling at her. I feel like she was kind of shocked a little bit, like almost brought back to reality. And Roger's like, let her go. And then she just turns and she's already gone. And now you're all gonna die.
Yeah. And so that's whenever Drew gives up April's location and she goes running like a little beast through the little under layer.
Didn't even stutter. She was just like, boom.
Goes away. And then I'm like, oh shit, she's gonna kill April.
Fuck it.
But
damn it, Drew. That was not your best move.
as soon as she ends up getting to April, everybody else kind of gets up to her too. And that's whenever it kind of starts becoming like, you know, the power of like love and light and like the mom's, you know,
A mother's
memory,
love will pull
of the
through.
beach.
Prevails
Because then Lorraine starts telling her like, remember that memory, that day you said you never forget, like you love your family. And so basically that love ends up saving Carolyn from the spirit of Bathsheba, and Lorraine ends up banishing Bathsheba into hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ed is all the time, he's like, he calls her by the name. And at that moment, Bathsheba like turns to
Her
look, and you're
spirit,
getting
yeah.
Bathsheba's face,
As
not
opposed to the
no
mom.
longer Carolyn's. And then, he says like, I like command you to leave this body. And she's like touching her on the head through the floor hole
It's a lot.
thing. And
It's a lot of demon.
and her face as she cries is like so fucking disturbing. As Carolyn's like sitting there like,
It's very real.
yeah.
Very, she deserved something. Maybe,
An
I don't
award
know if
for
it's an
that.
Oscar, but something for it.
Yeah, no, just the makeup. Like her lips looked so dry. I was like, "Girl, we need to get you some. We need to get you some Glossier."
I liked especially
put a little
too
ointment.
exactly because we then have them pulling her out of the house, and she ends up coming to like when the light hits her, and I love how like
The sun's like healing her.
because then that spirit is no longer a part of her, and she's unbound from the house,
And she's like, I'm so happy right now.
and she's hugging her daughter because she's like, I'm so sorry, I love you, like, and I'm sure the level of trauma that
I
these
was
kids
like,
are gonna have to go
poor
through,
April.
because even April was just like,
Yeah, I mean, she honestly
She was
seemed
pulling away
remarkably
from her.
okay. I would have been like, no. I mean, if I was 5 or whatever the fuck she was, I would have been like, I'm never going near that woman
you
again.
just tried to kill me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hard fucking pass.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I'm like, April is forever traumatized. But yeah, essentially it's over because they literally are like, it's over. But actually, in reality, it wasn't really over because the parents were really, you know, this all happened over a decade for them.
So it wasn't like they just moved in. And this is the point where Brad is on the porch.
Yeah.
And Drew comes up and he goes, did a draft do that to your face? And he says, I'd take a guy with a gun any day.
And so also too, just to highlight like the real story between what happened in the movie, like apparently with the parents after they did have their interaction with the Warrens, like apparently it was not necessarily exorcism as much as this was, as more so like a seance for them to talk with the spirit that was possessing Carolyn here. And so, because it wasn't like she possessed her and that was it. It was like it was happening like intermittently, but also because the family still chose to fucking live there after all these years of shit happening.
I mean, what can you do?
And after they had their last interaction, which was this story with them, they like cut ties with them and were just like never talked to them ever again, which was like probably a few years before still they moved out before the
so
80s
wild.
in the house. Yeah.
I wonder why.
But yeah, apparently also whenever they were doing this exorcism in the basement, Lorraine still hasn't divulged necessarily everything that she's seen or, you know, quote unquote has seen with what happened that night, because it truly like was the worst thing she's ever seen in her life. One of those kind of
The
situations.
one with the parent family or the one with the guy that fucked her up? That exorcism.
With the nun?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no.
That's the one
same
you're
kind of
referring
storyline. No, but where this same thing, like where she
But the
she
one in
saw
the parent
something.
one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see.
Things that people shouldn't see or hear about, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. But then, so April returns the little locket. The Warrens get home. They place the music box in their demon room. And then basically, like, as soon as they get home, Lorraine's like, I'm going to call the priest. Let him know what happened. And then she comes back and she's like, the Vatican approved the exorcism. And they're like, good timing.
Right.
And then she says, hey, the priest wants to meet about a case in Long Island, though. And I said, hello, Amityville.
Yeah.
Which is a perfect lead up to the fact that we have a live show coming up.
We do.
And we will be covering
the Amityville horror story.
Yeah. We'll be watching the original film with Poltergals on October 22nd. So if you're listening to this episode today, then that is going to be the following weekend.
Yep.
I believe.
It's coming up.
Actually, no, that would be.
I can't do math.
It would be that Saturday.
This Saturday.
It's a Saturday. We have a live show. And so it'll be at Nexus if you're
Coming
here in
out.
Waco. And we'll, like we said, we'll be with the Poltergals. They'll be covering the actual story and we'll be covering the movie. So it's going to be pretty fun.
Really fun night. There's going to be drinks. There's going to be ghouls. There's going to be gals. There's going to be us.
Ooh, dress in costume.
Yeah, dress in costume.
Cute.
Come
Dress
out.
as your favorite horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're super excited.
But yes, it is. And then the movie ends with a quote from Ed.
Does.
The music box playing and zooming in on the mirror. And then we get an abrupt cut to black with photos of the royal families and the headlines involving the Warrens. And super cool. I think it's a great tie to finish up the movie. Yeah. So any fun facts or anything you know about the film?
I started going into like what actually happened with the family and stuff, and a lot of this stuff kind of made it into the movie. Some of it, like, so when they first moved into that house, essentially the girls were the first ones to experience like any kind of poltergeist or interaction. And what they did was, at first the spirits were like more nurturing. So like there was a spirit that was like kind of like a nanny to them, like almost a mother. Yeah. That was taking care of them and like putting them to bed at night. And they said essentially they could tell that it wasn't their mom, because at first they thought it was, but then they could tell it wasn't, because their mom smelled like ivory soap, like washed, like clean.
Ivory soap was a very specific smell.
That the ghost smelled like roses and like lavender, like floral type of scents.
That's sweet.
But then it all started changing after a while. And they got like the mom flipping over in the chair from Andrea's account, because she said that she had gone at one point when they were doing like a seance down there, and she saw a chair going up upside down and ending up on the ceiling. And so that's how they tie that into the movie as well.
That's good. I like it.
But no, do you have any other fun facts or something that was tied into it?
LOL, it was supposed to be a PG-13 rating, so that's funny. But Ryan Gosling, he's featured on the soundtrack. So that's fun. I guess he has an indie rock band called like Dead Man's Bones, and they are like, so Ryan Gosling sitting there singing in the Conjuring soundtrack, which I think is cool. Screenings in the Philippines were blessed by priests. Basically, like they were
beforehand.
They have priests come into like the whole movie theater and be like,
"You're gonna watch
blessed.
this, but like,
but we're gonna bless you first so you don't get possessed."
Yeah.
The composer, the film's composer, played Bathsheba. Yeah. So Joseph Bishara has become, I hope that's how you say his name, has become something of a maestro when it comes to the horror film soundtrack. But he's like, he did some of the VHS Viral, Tales of Halloween, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he's been in a lot of James Wan films. So he like played the lipstick face demon in both Insidious and Insidious Chapter 3.
That's the one that looks like Darth Maul.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I couldn't take that movie seriously. And a demonic figure and the haunted doll, like in Annabelle, he was one of the demonic figures in there, and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then the current owners of the house at the film, at least when this article was written, sued. They sued James Wan.
Really?
And like DreamWorks
For
or whatever the fuck it
defamation.
was. Basically,
because it has listed a lot of like people wanting to like get attention from it or whatever.
well, they had a lot of vandalism. So this article, this is a quote. It says, after claiming they had experienced numerous acts of vandalism, been subject to threats of violence, found several objects affiliated with satanic cults placed there since the film hit the screens, Sutcliffe and Helfrich decided to sue director Wan, Studio Warner Brothers, and various other producers. And the couple who bought the property back in 1987, 16 years after the events in the movie took place, have also named 5 individual trespassers and 500 interlopers referenced as John and Jane Doe in the lawsuit. But
That's
basically they were like upset that they didn't allow them to know their plans of making this film beforehand. And then whenever they went to buy the house, the parents, at least, they were not notified of it being haunted. And that's because in Rhode Island, so there's certain states that have there's one case that I know Two Girls, One Ghost covered recently. I also listened to a Cabinet of Curiosities by Aaron Mankey on this same house recently, that basically this house was haunted and this family lived there, got along with the ghost basically just fine for years. And then whenever they went to sell the house, the guy who bought it was basically like, what the fuck? You didn't tell me it was haunted, even though she clearly had mentioned it. And then he basically was just like, oh, call in the Ghostbusters, because he was buying it in the 80s. And then it set off this whole thing of when you have to legally tell someone
people what happened in the house.
Yeah. And so, but you don't have to tell, you don't even have to tell if someone's been murdered in the house half the time. If it's been some states it's 1 year, some cases states it's 3 years, which I'm just like, ugh. 4 years ago is still pretty recent. If someone
once a murdered, always a murdered. It doesn't matter when it happened. It just happened.
Sometimes you only have to say if it's a violent crime, or you only have to say if someone asks. So it just depends on your state. So whenever you're buying a home, maybe look into your real estate law, see if
the house that I grew up in, that my
disclose.
parents still live in, someone died in it. Yeah,
It's not fun. I'm sorry.
that's just one guy that we know that died in it. He died of a heart attack or whatever, older age, and he passed away there. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I don't know. It's funny to think about.
My family home growing up, it was a 100-year-old log cabin. It's been demolished now, but that's the one that had the cemetery on the property. But then I remember,
it's possessed.
Yeah,
cemetery. Okay, possessed.
There's 2 cemeteries, and then my great uncle Dick died of a massive brain aneurysm in there. And I remember my fucking parents told me that, and I had to sleep in the room that he died in. That was my room.
Oh no!
And they were like, yeah, your great uncle Dick died in here. And they were like, of a brain aneurysm. And I didn't know what that is. And they're like, basically it's when blood comes out of all of your orifices and stuff. And you're like, I'm sure they said something about a brain, something in your brain snapping. But they told me blood came out of, I'm 5. I was 5.
His eyes or something. Yeah,
5 or less when I lived in that house.
Traumatizing.
So I just imagine the walls being painted with blood.
Oh no!
I imagine he went
very Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, and I was like, ah. Anyways,
yeah.
Boo time.
Boo rating. Boo rating. It's boo rating time.
Is it boo time?
Boo time. I don't know. I feel like I want to give it more than a 4.5. 4.8. A 4.8.
Why is that?
Almost a solid 5. it's just a really good story. I feel like James Wan did a really good job directing everything, the like way everything was shot, the way that the sound was like put in, the way that some shots would like fade from like color into like grayscale, the amount of effort that was put into tying in quote unquote what was a true ghost story that happened in real life with like fictional Hollywood and like tying everything in. It was just genuinely a fun ride.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very good story. I liked all the effects that happened with the family. I felt that progressively worked because it wasn't like everything all at once. You started getting like the slight little nudges that they were feeling at the house with doors opening, and then like maybe just a clock or a smell, and then like someone started getting pulled, and then it came to like a hard tug, and then
Definitely
it
had
just
a nice
all built up into them meeting with the Warrens, and then we got Drew, which was just like such a nice plot, you know.
10 out of 5 boosts.
10 out of 5. So Drew really had a big part of this, Shannon Gook. And then we had everything tying in all together, and then knowing how we have the whole universe that is the Conjuring cinematic whatever it is, and it ties in everything really nicely. So I don't know, I give it a 4.8 because it's also just like, I feel like if you have a friend that you meet that's just like, I don't like scary movies, but you're just like, just watch a scary movie, you can watch this one. Watch The Conjuring.
Yeah.
It's not like I feel like it's a happy medium. I feel like it's not like anything that's like just over like scary or over someone who can't handle it. Like, it's the perfect type of scare for someone. You got a few jump scares, you got a good solid story, and you actually care about the characters because you start to care about the kids and the family, and like you start to care about the Warrens. And then it's also gives this trope of like, you have Lorraine, who's this like super badass, super like powered clairvoyant who's just coming in to save the day, and you get the whole lore of like the evil room, and it's almost 2 hours. It's right under 2 hours, but like
51 minutes, I believe.
But
I watched this on HBO Max.
Same, and it doesn't feel like almost 2 hours.
Yeah,
you can lose yourself
it's very
in it.
well
It's very
paced.
fast. Yeah. So
well paced and a good progression as you go throughout.
It's just a good spooky movie.
Smacking you in the face from the get. But yeah, I agree. I'm going to give it a 5.
I give it a 5.
I love this movie. This is,
you know what? I changed my rating. I give it a 5 too.
Okay.
Okay.
I was like, it sounded like you wanted to give it a 5. This is one that I know I said before. I think I mentioned how like my dad and I would watch this like,
oh yeah, for
any
Christmas.
like holiday. Yeah, we were together. Basically, we'd watch this, and even at the time, my stepsister was pretty young, and she would watch it with us. Like, we were just kind of family, like dad, stepsister, Carey, and my brothers were like, we'd all just sit there and watch Conjuring together.
Yeah,
and it was like every year. And I've seen this movie a billion times, like probably at least, I'm gonna say like at least 25 sometimes, and I love it still.
It's
and
so
it
good.
Still freaks me out.
Yeah, same.
To this day.
Even me watching it by myself the other night, I was just like, oh, this is pretty spooky.
Yep. And I mean, The Conjuring 2 also did a good job of that. Now, I don't love that one quite as much. I do still enjoy it, but like recently, and I know I mentioned this
Conjuring
before.
2, actually, I like more than I like this one.
Really?
Yeah.
The Nun gets a little cheesy at sometimes for me, but that like old man, my house. I love him, and he's fucking creepy.
Yeah. And
there's a few moments in there where I was trying to watch it alone one day, and it was kind of like a stormy day, and I like turned it on, and I was like, I'm going to watch it. And then I had to kind of turn it off because I was like, I'm a little too freaked out right now because all the little toys and stuff in the house looked so much like mine. So I
can see that. Yeah.
I was like, I feel a little too in the movie right now. I'm going to have to step out. But yeah, I love this film. The acting was great. Storyline was great. Even though it was embellished, I still think that it was it was like such a strong start for this franchise. Yeah. And which I think is why I was so disappointed with The Devil Made Me Do It, because this film it really, like, it sunk its teeth into me. The moment I saw it, I was like, nah.
Well, even if you didn't,
I think I saw it multiple times in theaters.
well, even if you didn't, like we were just talking about how like I really like the second one better. If you didn't like the second one better, the second one was still a good movie.
Oh, it's still fantastic. I still loved it.
And the third one just kind of was a letdown from those two.
By the time, like, when I said, like,
But
I didn't like it as much, I'm talking like 4.8.
I'll be honest with you.
It.
I also haven't seen the third one since the first time I watched it
Yeah,
because I was so
curious
disappointed by it. So maybe with the second watch, I can appreciate it more. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know. Maybe I could.
Yeah.
But yeah, so solid 5.
Solid 5 for the
for
Conjuring one.
2013's The Conjuring directed by James Wan. Phenomenal film.
Thank you guys.
Love.
You should go check it out.
You should.
And you should also check us out on October 22nd.
At Nexus, and we'll be posting that on our social media as well. So keep your eyes peeled if you're in the Waco area.
And
please
if you've
come by and see us.
Made it this long throughout this episode, please check out roadmedianetwork.com because there's a lot of nice episodes on there.
Yep.
From
lots
all
of podcasts.
The
you can listen
podcasts,
to us. You can listen to Poltergals, who will also be there with us.
Exactly.
On there. And yeah, you can find any of us there or on any of the slew of podcasting platforms, the biggest two being
Spotify
and Apple. And wherever you do listen, please don't forget to
rate, review, like, and subscribe.
That's right, because that's the only way we can get ahead in this world. And if you want to tell us your thoughts on The Conjuring, tell us what you think about next week's films being Conjuring 2.
Yeah.
And then, next week's
Mama.
film and Trick or Treat. Then you can reach out to us on our social media platform being Instagram at
BooBaes Podcast. That's BOOBAES because we are your BooBaes, not your BooBabes.
That's right. And until Friday for The Conjuring 2. Bye, bays.
Bye, bays.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.
Join the ultimate celebration of digital content with its creators, passionate fans, and industry experts. It's all happening in downtown Waco across multiple venues on January 20th through the 22nd, 2023. Tickets are on sale now at roguecon23.com.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. Check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't right, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.